Well, we're here today, the most beautiful day in May. My name is Bob Rupert. I'm here with friends Jim Mechanic, Kip Coddington from Arlington, Virginia, and my dog Dixie. She's here with us, and we're going to talk a little bit about coal forges. So, Bob Gaston, a friend of mine, has donated enough parts for me to build a coal forge to be auctioned for the Southside Historic Village in the near future. And it's behind me to my left. And before I started this process, I just happened to have this, probably a 1905 silver manufacturing hand pump forge. And Kip Coddington has purchased this, and I wanted to have this film done before he takes this home, because what I did was I took this forge and studied it for a while. And the reason why I did that is because I feel that the people that manufactured this years ago and used it years ago probably had a pretty good sense of how to make a very nice, well-manufactured forge. And I tried to copy that as best I could in the forge that I have to my left, at which we manufactured. And as I observed or examined this forge, I found one thing really prevalent, is that it can be taken apart. And I think when they sold these, they probably were maybe under $50, I'm sure. Cast iron construction, and basically they were sold. This one came from Wausau, Nebraska, and I didn't meet the original owner because he was probably a little older than me, but as I looked at the manufacturing and the way they've actually put it together, completely disassembled, because if a farmer would have bought these years ago, which is probably who purchased these mostly, if a village wouldn't have a blacksmith, regular farmers would have these so that they could repair their machinery and whatnot. So it would probably come disassembled to him, and he would put it together and then possibly learn how to do metalworking as he's needing the repairs to be done, either heating something to straighten it or maybe doing something a little more elaborate like forge welding. So I kind of want to go over and share with you what I've seen in this forge. Now, the primary topic to me is its disassembling. And I know that's probably not important to most people, but I felt that that was quite important. It has a hand pump or air supply to create enough heat using coal, soft bituminous coal, is what would be used in these forges. The first part of the forge, probably the most important part, is the forge pot. On this particular forge, it has a cast iron hearth and a cast iron pot. And the pot on this one, it incorporates the blower and the pot together. So it has a squirrel cage blower down at the bottom, which goes through the tweer and comes out into this recessed area here. And Kip will come up here for a minute and we'll tip that up for you so you can actually see that a little bit better. Just kind of tip it up and we'll take that brick out. And then we're going to set that down, and then we're going to kind of tip it towards Jimmy so he can see a little bit better what we have inside. We're going to hold it there for a second. This particular pot, if you go to purchase one of these, you want to be looking that this is not cracked. And when I bought this, it wasn't clayed in, and I knew that the importance of this pot, without the pot and the blower together, you wouldn't have much of a forge. So I clayed this in. This is a ceramic lined pot at this point, cast iron with ceramic over top. And that's good to 2800 degrees. So if you have a coal forge and you want to preserve the pot, that's one suggestion, is to clay up the inside to protect it from the extreme heat that it's going to receive. We're going to set this back down. Thanks, Kip. If we tip this back up, we can actually see this a little bit better, I think. Just tip it up a little bit and slide that brick maybe on edge, huh? Set it up on edge, you can see a little bit better. Is that pretty good for you, Jim? Mm-hmm. Okay. Now, you can see the silver manufacturing company on here. It says Selma, USA. We're not exactly sure where that is, but we're going to look that up this evening because I never did. It has a handle right here which rotates a ball in the tweer which will control getting rid of the clinkers, and it also, you can angle the air sometimes. If you turn it a little bit one way or another, you can get the air to come out. You'll see the bearing, there's a bearing here and one on the opposite side of the impeller shaft, and it's all adjustable. It has jam nuts and an oil cap right here. And most of the guys are using chainsaw oil on those now to lubricate those. At the other end of this, you'll see a big flywheel, and you'll see another set of bearings, adjustable again with the oil reservoir, and then a link that attaches to a weight to a wooden handle. And as you pull on this handle, it has a ratchet assembly inside of this housing. There's two dogs in there that basically, when you lever this down, the dogs catch and the flywheel spins and the air will come out the top of your tweer. And then there's also a lever here which will allow you to dump the ashes out the bottom. So the features, as you can see, is that you could build a forge without all these features, like dumping the ashes out, maybe just a hole and just an air source, either rotary or it could be a bellows, but it's either going to have one of the two. It's either going to be electric or hand operated. So if you go with electric, then we'll explain those things on the other forge because it is electric. And you can see the legs and the attachments to the legs to the body. And belt-driven, flywheel operated, ceramic lined, cast iron coal forge, soft bituminous coal. So that's this particular forge, and I tried to incorporate the features, the four features that I see that are important: the forge pot, the air supply, the controls from the air to the coal that's going to be burnt, and then the last thing, which is maybe the one most important, is your health, is to extract the coal smoke out of your shop. And that's coal management, or coal, what's the word we were looking for there?
Air management.
Air management or smoke management in a forge. So we're going to take what you see here. I'm going to let Jimmy span this one more time, and then we're going to move to my left to the green forge, which took about 2.5 weeks to build from parts. And if you don't have certain skills, my suggestion is to have someone build it for you. If you can't weld, if you can't drill and tap holes, if you don't have a lot of tools, like a grinder and a bandsaw and those kind of things, you can obviously purchase the parts, but to come up with something that's usable over a long period of time might be a little more difficult. You're going to have a lot of trouble, and the trouble I'm speaking of is it's hard enough to heat a piece of metal in a coal forge and not burn it up to begin with. And if you start adding controls that don't work and air sources that don't work correctly, it's going to be really frustrating in a short period of time. And we don't want you to be, we want you to have fun doing blacksmithing. So I'm gonna move over to my left, And we're going to take a little better look at this green forge that I have up here on the grass. As we were discussing this, I have got some prompters here, and they reminded me that I was going to talk a little bit about coal. Coal is king in Pennsylvania. If you didn't know that, if you're from Pennsylvania, coal is king. Gas is coming around, but it's going to be a while. Coal is actually fairly cheap here still. You can get a ton of coal, run of the mine or whatever, I don't know, $120 a ton or so, maybe 160. Most of my coal comes from tailgated trucks, meaning if a truck is overloaded and he's going down the road and there's scales have been thrown up in his path for him to be weighed, he'll pull off on a side street and open the tailgate and to reduce his weight. And usually you see these piles laying around, and when I spot one, I try to captivate it and bring it home. Sometimes it's not all the best coal. We have a huge power plant here, and it burns coal that's been mixed. And mixed coal, which is what you're going to find mostly at the different coal yards, is good coal and bad coal mixed together. And it's cut up in small sizes. And it looks really good, except for you do have a lot of clinkers, because as it burns, the bad coal starts to show up as a form of clinker. And that's what the clinker breaker, this little rotating ball, is able to eliminate. But it is bothersome, so to speak. So if you find good deep mine coal, bituminous, soft coal is what we're speaking. Not talking about anthracite, and most blacksmiths don't use anthracite coal because it doesn't coke. A coking quality coal is the ability to burn the coal and reduce the volatile materials out of it. It doesn't take but 5 minutes or 10 to make coke out of soft bituminous coal. Very simple to do. Put it in the forge, heat it up, a lot of smoke, not very hot, and in a short period of time the smoke will disappear and the flame will become a nice bluish color and very, very clean, and you're able to weld and things in that using that type of atmosphere. Coal is sold by the button number, and what I mean by a button number is button numbers from 1 to 10, and it's the ability for coal, when it's heated to form coke, it actually expands and swells up. And if it's swelled up like 10 times its normal size, it would be a coke button number 1. It would be the best. And as you go down, the coal buttons, depending on the size and the grade of the coal, you can also get an analysis on coal. And the analysis usually gives you the sulfur content, it usually gives you the BTUs, the ash content, and a number of other things. And you can usually get an analysis when you buy coal. Some major coal yards would have that analysis and give it to you. Let me look at my notes to see if I forgot anything about coal. That's pretty much it. If you're going to do blacksmithing, my suggestion is to buy soft bituminous coal. And if you buy it in big lumps, don't try and break it up and get it all over your shop. Just set the lump on top of the forge. And in a very short period of time, it'll just start to expand, and you can just tap with a hammer and it'll just fall in a million little pieces. You know exactly what you have because it's not been mixed. You have a lump. It either came out of a big seam, and you know it's not mixed with something else because you have the lump there. So sometimes I like to buy just big lump coal. And a lot of blacksmiths think they have to have a nut coal or this certain size. Once it's in here and you heat it, it's all going to look the same. So don't be too concerned about the size of it. And if you buy commercial coke, which a lot of people will bring you, I have many people bring me loads of commercial coke, and there's nothing you can do with it. You can beat it around your shop and ashes will fly all over and you'll have chips, but it takes a tremendous amount of air to keep it going, and just not what you want. So go out and buy some inexpensive coal if you're in the in Ohio, Pennsylvania, West Virginia, and then some places out west they also have very good coal. So that's as much as I want to tell you on coal. I don't want to bore you too much on that. So let's move over to this green forge and start to talk a little bit about this manufactured forge. Like I said before, Bob Gaston donated all the parts that you see here. And I'll go over some of those parts, and then I'll go back to the same 4 things that are incorporated into this forge that I saw in this antique. First off, the pot. This is I used a castable refractory in this particular pot. It has about the same depth and about the same diameter. And if Kip will come over here, we'll take that and tip this down so you can see the look of that. He'll take off this hood, and we'll tip this down so Jimmy can get a little better sense of what's in here. You can see it's round, almost exactly the same diameter. It's recessed about 3 or 4 inches at the most. This one has a rotating ball inside, but it's ventilated. It's a ventilated ball instead of a solid ball. This one has little sculptured edges, where this one has holes that are perforating the rotating ball. You also notice that this lays in a plate. It's 1/4 inch, which in some cases is not really thick enough, but in this case it's been creased in a press, which increased its rigidity tremendously. A lot of people will weld angle iron on here or whatever. I just happen to have a friend that has a press brake that will bend this in about 30 seconds, so that's what we did. We broke these edges, which gave it that flare and also made it very, very rigid. We'll tip that back down. You notice something just fell down here. That particular forge, when we moved it, it was fairly difficult because nothing to grab to. There was one feature that I thought about. So I drilled holes in here and I made these little handles. And basically they just go in the hole and you can pick it up. You could also use it to put your tongs on if you leave it in place. But if you want to clean off the forge, it's easily done by taking these right off. It also has 2 more holes here with a rest. That particular forge has that same capability, but we didn't show it because it's been removed for transport. But that does have the same type of rest, and that's where I got the ideas from there. Okay, we looked at the pot and the rotating ball and the ceramic lined pot with forgeable abilities, just like that one there. It's about the same size, the same depth. However, this one has that rotating ball that's ventilated, and the handle comes out right here, very similar to that one. So you can control the air and get rid of the clinkers. At the bottom, you notice that one you could dump out the clinkers. Same thing here. We've added a little flare. We've got a rock for a weight, kind of wired in or forged into that piece. And then this common 2-inch pipe pieces here. So T, a short, probably about 4 or 5 inch long threaded piece here, and then a longer piece at the bottom, a chamber basically to capture the coal, so you could, the clinkers, so you can dump that into a bucket. They also have the connection from the electric blower. Remember I said that one has a hand blower, and if you have electric, you either have to have a control to it or a switch. A lot of people use rheostats. Not too fond of those, but this one has an air control here that rotates a butterfly inside of this plastic housing. This particular air source is an air source from a gas furnace high efficiency. It actually is used to force the emissions out the chimney, which are fairly small in diameter. I've got an airplane, a military airplane going over. So let's wait a second for that to go by. So this particular forge has a shut-off and an air butterfly control. So it has both. You can either shut it off and on, or you can leave it on and basically rotate this lever, which will either give you more air or less air, and the blower runs at a constant rate. It's coupled together with this metal fitting with a Fernco coupling, and if in fact you want to remove the pot, you can remove all the controls by disconnecting your Fernco coupling, taking this bolt out here, and the pot is screwed into the bottom of this plate by 4 screws. So using the same scenario that they had here, I incorporated this into this forge so that it can be taken apart. The legs are bolted on with round-headed bolts that have the square shank. So when you tighten them up, you don't have to have a wrench to hold them. It leaves the top fairly smooth too, so that you don't have something sticking up in the way. And then the electrification, the wire comes in and goes into this box, which is incorporated into the leg, and it also has a plug-in. So if in fact you were going to use a grinder or needed a light or something, some other electrical source, you could continue to run the forge and plug it into this socket, which will allow you to do a lot more with the forge and not disturb the air source at that time. The legs, when I received all the parts, the legs were a little short and fairly sharp on the edge. It's a C-channel that's formed in some kind of a break, and it's probably an 1/8 inch thick, the legs. So I added these blocks to each leg to raise the height to around 30 inches, which is about the height of that one. This is where this one is most important. If you don't have one of these to copy, or to at least have a good example of what you're going to build that's definitely usable, you may have a little more difficulty in incorporating a design that will work for you later on. So I raised this up using these 4 blocks, and that came from a 1920 piano support. I used those wooden blocks. A guy asked me to tear a piano apart, and it's been laying back here, so I cut them off and used that for these. Other features on this particular forge is the smoke management portion of it. And you'll see right behind me to my left here a Rob Gunter designed side draft forge hood, or forge management, smoke management system. Rob Gunter is from New Mexico, and he has a forgery school out there, and he has 2 sons that have followed in his footsteps. And I purchased this hood from a guy in Lexington, Virginia, a number of years ago at SOFA. And what Rob has done with this hood is design a baffle system to keep the cold air or warm air in the shop from going outside. It also has a huge smoke shelf inside, and it has this wonderful curved section to sort of captivate the smoke before it travels into your shop, which is a very big health factor in blacksmithing, is to get rid of the smoke. If you see pictures of a blacksmith shop, years have gone by, and you notice that everybody's face is black, please don't copy what you see in that shop, because they didn't understand forge hoods. When I purchased the antique, I had a forge hood made to extract the smoke in my shop. And when I got done, I had more smoke in the shop than I started. And then somebody clued me in one day at Southern Ohio Ford and Anvil that a side draft hood was the way to go. And they were absolutely, positively right. Hoods do not work. The bigger you make them, the more smoke you'll have, because what you're trying to do is stuff all the air in your shop. The size of the hood is trying to captivate as much air as possible, but it's only going up maybe a 10 or 12 inch chimney. So the bigger the hood, the more air you're trying to stuff into a 10 or 12 inch chimney, which doesn't work. What you need to do is reduce the amount of air going into the smoke pipe and create a velocity at its entrance. And that's what a side draft hood does the best. It eliminates the air from the top and maybe the sides. It's placed fairly close to where the heat and smoke is coming up, and it creates a side draft draw, which works really, really well. So this particular forge hood I've fabricated to fit the antique hand pump coal forge. So this actually fits on that forge. I've actually forged the sides to conform to that arch around the side, and there's I've incorporated 2 bolts that are threaded into the sides, and that's how this is attached, and then it's clayed in. So the whole back of this is actually clayed up, and it's a little ragged around the bottom. I received it that way, but once it's clayed in place, you don't even notice that. And then your smoke pipe attached to the top, which is, this one's 10 inch, and that's pretty normal. You see some 12s, but 10 seems to be adequate for this size pot. So I didn't want to take the time to fabricate a side draft hood like this, because they usually cost somewhere around $300 to fabricate one of these. Rob probably charges a lot more for this style, but it's a lot more work. This one has a lot of features that just a regular side draft doesn't have. I didn't want to take time to do that. I didn't have the energy at this point, and I didn't have the materials, so I was rooting around in my supply area back here, and I came across this particular piece of pipe. I decided that I wonder if, in fact, I cut a hole in that pipe, this keyhole shape. I wonder if that would work. And the first thing I noticed was side draft forge hoods. They tend to rust. They're subject to a lot of heat, and they're usually made out of something thin. This is ceramic. It's about 3/4 of an inch thick. It's 10 inches in diameter, or better. Actually, it's better than 10 inches. And I thought, you know, this might be the ticket. And I wonder if anybody else is using something like this. And I have high-speed internet now. For those of you who probably won't believe this, but I do. And I looked it up, and I couldn't find one example of a hood made out of a pipe. This is antique too. This came from a farm over here that we destroyed here fairly recently. And I suppose this is probably at least 60 years old. I don't know if you can buy this style anymore. They make them square. So don't be alarmed that you can't buy one of these. If you buy a chimney pipe, they come in all sizes, and they have the hole already in them. So you can purchase them for probably under 50 bucks, depending on the size. They make one I thought would be really nice would be something like 12 by 16. It's rectangular, and it would have, if you don't have a hole in it, you can easily cut those in with an angle grinder and a ceramic blade. So Kip's going to help me put this up on the forge so you can see where it actually will live eventually. And it sets up here. Let's put this down. Let's put the forge down a minute. Put it up on top, and then we'll tip that back down. Let's just tip that. Let me pull the bricks out. There we go. Well choreographed. And it rotates around and just sits on top of the forge plate. There's also a a smokestack. Where's our smokestack? Inside. After I cut this hole through the pipe, I decided to make a little bill cap to go on there, and it attaches with two rods that go through the pipe. They're drilled parallel through the pipe, and I've tack welded this plate to those rods. It slides off. On the inside, to create a little bit of a smoke shelf, I made a little piece with a nut on one side that slips over one of the pipes and lays on top the other to give it a little bit of a smoke shelf. I did try it, and it seems to draw really well. So this is the adapter that attaches to the top of the pipe. The piece I cut out of here to install the pot from the bottom is this piece. I cut a hole in that, and then that piece slides on top of here and rotates. So it's locked on now. These pipes aren't exactly perfectly round, so when you weld these 3 tabs on here, you'll find if you go to put it back on, you better mark where it's indexed. You won't be able to get it back on. And that's kind of a nice feature because well, just hold on a second. Let me get a little tapper here. You can lock this on to that pipe so it won't fall off just by rotating this. Now it's locked on. And then there's a little ring on the inside. There's 2 screws that hold the pipe on to that adapter. And then you just add your pieces of pipe as you go up, you know, if you want to go real tall, whatever. And that'll allow you to hook it all up, and like the other antique, you can take it all apart and remove this off the top, clean your forge or whatever. I believe that these particular things are really kind of handy, and are easily forged up. Once you get your forge made, you can make a lot of those specific pieces that will make it a little bit nicer as you go along. Am I missing anything? Kip?
I don't think so. I think that's...
I'm hoping that you, with the ideas I've shared here, that I'll start to see maybe more people with a ceramic side draft smoke management control. We tried to identify what that was. Kip came up with that idea, smoke management, which is fairly accurate, I think. And if you, and like I said before, if you intend to build one of these, before you go and collect all your parts, my suggestion is look at your skills to make sure that your parts aren't going to just be not used eventually. And maybe if you don't have the time, to actually put it all together, you'll see many examples of people with a hair dryer and you know, a piece of pipe, and you can put it in the ground and you can get by like that. But if you're going to do this and be comfortable and have a lot of fun, it's nice to have something that actually does work correctly, and you control the air. That's a big feature in having a forge. And get rid of the clinkers and whatnot, and then find some good coal. And we intend to possibly make a few videos this year on knife making and a few others, so be looking out for those. Go to his website, and I'm sure he'll show that at the end, and search that out, and hope you enjoy this video. Hope there's something that we have covered that maybe you hadn't thought of, and that's the whole reason for doing this, is to share what we already know, or we already have studied this antique, a very, very, very good example of a well-made forge. And that's pretty much it for this perfect day in May. We're going to go have lunch, and thank you for viewing this, and thank you for maybe considering a purchase. And we're signing off from Clinton, Pennsylvania, and it's about 75 degrees, and good day.